Welcome to the Gaming of Performance Podcast, episode 23. On this episode of the podcast, I get to talk with Coach Ryan Harrison. Ryan is the son of Dr. Bill Harrison, and together they run Slow the Game Down. Slow the Game Down is a vision performance training facility that works largely in part with professional baseball athletes. Coach Ryan and I dive into what they do at Slow the Game Down, how they do it, and how it makes people better. This was a really interesting conversation. So without further ado, here is Coach Ryan, the iGuy Harrison. Coach Ryan, thank you so much for your time today. Really looking forward to chopping it up with you and figuring out what vision training is and how you implement it. So for the listeners at home, will you tell us a little bit about your background, your motivation, and how you got to where you are?
Definitely. Thanks for having me, first one. I've been doing this for about 20 years now. And really all my life, to be honest with you, because I learned everything from my dad, who's been doing this since the 1970s, Dr. Bill.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But my degree is exercise physiology from the University of California at Davis. And when I got out of school, just like most of us don't know what we want to do, had some ideas, thought I'd make some changes. And got into sales for a while outside of the industry. And my dad asked me one day, said, "Hey, why don't you come to spring training with me? Could use your help." So I went out there, and you never listen to your dad as a kid, and you start listening, and you used to go, "Wow, he knows something." Yeah. And these players are listening to him, and there's a need there. And from that day on, I decided, "Hey, Dad, I think I'm going to help you, and this is what I want to do," and been doing it for 20 years, and it's had a fun ride.
That's awesome. So will you tell us a little bit, what exactly is vision training?
Well, that's a good question, because it's people take it for granted what vision is. They think they see every day. Yeah. And we even play with some of the words. It's really performance vision training. Okay. And vision training is not really about clarity, and that's what a lot of people get caught and stop. Is can he see? Can he not see? In fact, I get a lot of coaches that say we have this issue with this player, but we had his eyes checked, but we can't find anything wrong. And there's more to it, and it's really about how the eyes function and the brain function and how they interact. And so we kind of call it performance vision training. And it's not necessarily therapy. It's really about learning how to use your eyes to perform. And there's some skill sets, there's some tactics, and the ability to use them. Okay.
Do you know, or would you mind explaining a little bit of like the history and like how it was discovered and how your dad kind of got into it?
Well, a lot of this comes from vision therapy, which usually is, a therapeutic, someone that's got a vision problem, and they're trying to figure out how to get them normal. Okay. And a lot of times, I describe it as physical therapy. If you hurt your ankle, you're going to go to physical therapy first and get to walking again. And then training is really taking it to another level. So, as far as my father's concerned, he had a passion in vision learning and helping kids. He was a baseball player at Cal and thought about vision and how it works for him as a player. And he was lucky enough in early 1971 to start working with the Kansas City Royals and what they call the Royals Baseball Academy. And had some partners there, and they took it to another level, and we've been doing it for, I don't know, what is it now, 47 years. Wow. We've been doing it.
That's awesome.
And advancing it. So,
that's really, really cool. So how does it all work, right? So how do you guys assess if an athlete needs vision training or if they can benefit from it? Do they kind of just come to you, or how does that work?
That's interesting. Just trying to think how to answer that question. Yeah. Because there's a lot of aspects to it. Okay. And we're very lucky because we've been around. We get a lot of top athletes, and we get a lot of athletes who are looking for that 1% edge. They're trying to figure out how to take their game to another level. Yeah. And understand how they perform. Yeah. So we can assess how the eyes function. Okay. We can assess how they process information. We can assess the way they use their eyes. And pretty much any athlete is going to get value if they're open and interested in getting better. We obviously have rejection like anyone else. If they're not in the mindset they want to learn, they're not going to learn. But it's there's definitely a piece of everything we do that will be effective of any athlete of any sport.
Okay. Will you take us just briefly through like what kind of generally an assessment might look like?
If I have not seen the athlete prior or know anything about them. I tend not to want to know a lot of information about them, especially when we talk about baseball players. And, I may know them because they're around, but depending on what we're trying to assess, there are a lot of questions that we want to find out a little bit of how they perform, but we do assess how the visual ocular motor control skills work. Okay. So we will test, not necessarily for clarity. Now we may kind of do a general look just to make sure there's nothing there. And in fact, in college sports, with the college teams that we work with, usually there's probably about 20 to 40% of the team have a clarity issue.
Really?
That needs to be corrected.
Okay.
It may be that they're not wearing something that when they should. It may be that their contacts or glasses are a little bit off. They're not as effective with what they need to be to perform at a high level sport.
Okay.
So we'll do a simple assessment, not a vision exam, but a simple assessment of how their eyes from a clarity standpoint. And then we really want to see how the muscles of the eyes work and their ocular motor control. So there's actually 14 muscles of the eye, 7 in each eye, and we want to see how they function just like you guys do on a strength and conditioning and see what their strengths and weaknesses are there. And we also want to understand the techniques of how they use those eyes. So our assessments can last 15 minutes, and if we have more time, we bring more equipment to assess other skills that we can.
Okay, cool. That's really cool. So what kind of effects can be seen kind of off of, like how long does it take to see effects in performance, or what effects can be seen in performance?
I tell people that haven't seen me before, they're probably going to get some value within the first half hour that we talk.
Really? Okay.
Because, people know that, when you talk to athletes, hey, what are you doing? You're performing well. What are you thinking about? I'm thinking about nothing. How are you seeing things? Man, I'm seeing things great. The ball's slow, or the motion's slow. Everything's there. And what we're looking at is how we can control that more efficiently, how we can get back in there using our eyes. Okay. So there's some tactics that we teach that will allow them to get into that a little bit more. As far as the training part of it, of training the eyes, it depends on the deficit. It depends on how good or how much work needs to be done and the mode that we need to go to do that. Some people get, again, quick, like I said, and some people, it could take months before their eyes get to where we want, where we see them as being high quality visual skill sets.
Interesting. So you mentioned deficits. Do you often see deficits from eye to eye, and can you train like one eye versus the other, or how does that work?
Yeah, definitely. Especially when we talk about muscles of the eyes, there's 12 muscles, even though I said there's 14, there's 12 muscles that are involved in tracking, 6 on each eye. And I always tell people, think of it like your arm muscles. They're doing curls. They're actually kind of, and I know you can see me and no one else can see me, but they're moving like this on here, side to side. They don't move necessarily up and down. They move side to side. And those muscles, you'll find some weakness in one eye over the other. Sometimes you find the weakness in both eyes. Sometimes you'll find weakness in, say, the bicep instead of the tricep of those muscles. And so depending on that deficit, there's definitely training that can be done to get the eyes to function more efficiently together.
Okay, very interesting. So you kind of mentioned how you kind of think of this as a therapy, right? So do you offer this kind of training for like general population, or is there a different set of training skills or like a different regimen that you use with general population?
So non-athletes you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. The thing is we all see. We all see at different levels of what we see. And so it does take a little bit of motivation, but if someone is normal, doesn't have a big deficit, and they just want to get better, there is value to that. And one of the values is basically fatigue. Okay. Fatigue and focus. And, people do not like to read because of the fatigue factor, or they just can't handle it. A lot of that is the stress in the muscles that's going on. So those can be trained to be relaxed, just similar to what we do with athletes, and can be a lot better. Now, on another note to this is concussion. Whether it's sports or non-athletes that suffer from concussion. A lot of them have visual motor control issues after concussion that can be retrained to be more efficient and to allow yourself to be more efficient.
Okay, interesting. So with any kind of methodology, right? Same with strength and conditioning. There's often many people that that claim that they can offer certain training or performance benefits, but that don't actually target things, right? So how can we sort legitimate vision training from, say, people that might be fakes?
Yeah. Well, that's how the world gets around, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff out there, especially in the strength and conditioning world. I've been around and I've seen some great toys.
Yeah.
And those toys might be effective on one person, but not effective on 99% of the people that try it.
Yeah.
And same with vision. There are some things, and there are, we call it eye candy in a sense. Okay. And the nice thing about it, no one's going to get hurt.
Yeah.
There's nothing really on the visual side that's going to hurt them to make it worse, which can happen in the strength and conditioning world in some of those programs.
Yeah.
But there's some things that aren't effective. They're just not doing what they need to do. And there needs to be a lot more research, to be honest with you, in this world that help put products and techniques to be tested.
Okay.
And even for us, we're always trying to manipulate. If something's not working, we want to go another direction, and we're always trying to find the right method to do that. And there are times that I will take a piece of eye candy that I don't like, but I will have to use it to be able to be effective with this person. So, back to kind of fakes versus this. I think the fake stuff is the stuff that is. Trying to think how to say this a little nicely too at the same time is, are they getting benefits out of it? Is there a plan for them to get to, or are you just throwing, like in baseball, for instance, I see colored balls all the time. Or I ask people, hey, what do you do to work on the vision of your athletes? Oh, we have numbers on balls. Well, what are you doing with them? I don't know. We just put numbers on the ball. Is it helping them? I don't know.
Yeah. So
they're not really understanding what's going on. Now, numbers might be effective if they know how to use that tool to be effective. But most people aren't. They're just doing something because it looks cool.
Yeah.
It looks fun on there. And they got to have a meaning behind and what's the purpose and what are the results they're trying to gain. So there's not, again, it's more, I think, the knowledge more than the piece of equipment, that generates the fake. There's some equipment out there that does it very well that I don't even use because I don't need.
Yeah.
It's not part of my plan. Are people getting benefits out of it? Sure, they sure are. But could they get benefits in a different way? Most likely.
Yeah, interesting. Okay. So you mentioned how most athletes could benefit from this, right? But what kind of athletic populations, do you mostly work with, or do you think that would get a major benefit from vision training?
Well, anything that has to do with two eyes.
Okay.
Will get benefit.
Okay.
I always tell people swimming, maybe not.
Yeah.
But there are some things from focus that can be beneficial, and we call it visual focus, that can be beneficial. But we do work with athletes from all sports. We obviously the eye-hand ball coordination skills people understand a little bit quicker. So we do a lot in baseball and softball. I do have football players, hockey players, soccer players, tennis players, golfers, race car drivers, MMA fighters. I work in track and field.
Wow.
All different sports. We just try to figure out what is that visual demand for that athlete and what can we do to affect that. Okay. And even with, I use hockey a lot because a goalie is very different than what a defenseman needs to work on and different than a offensive player needs to work on.
Yeah.
So they're all different. If there's a visual demand and if you need two eyes to do it, then there's definitely something we can do to enhance that.
Okay. So follow-up question to that, right? So how can we make vision training kind of less exclusive? How can we, as coaches, learn more, and how can strength coaches maybe even implement some of these methods?
It's a good question. Very good question. I think one is the openness, wanting to learn.
Okay.
And I think we're in an era now that people are asking those questions. In the past, there's so much gains in strength and conditioning that they're caught up in what they're learning. And I think one of the negatives is you guys are responsible for a lot. And being able to do a lot is a challenge for you.
Yeah.
I do work with strength and conditioning coaches where it's great, where they work on the body, and then the athletes come over to me to work with the eyes.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes, the eyes have to play a little bit more important role, and not just a side dish in a sense.
Yeah.
Now, something that we do plan on doing is creating more certifications.
Okay.
My passion is obviously athletics and strength and conditioning world, and I think that's something that we want to educate more. We're at a point we want to educate more and allow those possibilities for people to get out there.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. So what are some things that might have a negative effect on this type of training, like whether it be lifestyle habits or something like that, if there are any?
As far as the training, I don't know if there's any negative effects, but if someone is over-focused on mechanics, their vision doesn't work for them very well.
Okay.
If they're over-focused on thinking about other stuff, their eyes will not work for them very well. Now, and another way of going about this is negative things affect on the eyes is mobile phones, computer screens.
Yeah.
Those are creating, some damage to the eyes at younger age today. Now, I would never say get rid of them.
Yeah.
It just has to be modified, and there's things that you can do to not get the damage from the blue light and other things that are going on.
Okay.
So those are some of the negative effects that can happen. But from training itself, there's really not a negative effect from training your eyes.
Okay. No, that's kind of what I meant. More so like what are things outside of training that could negatively affect. So that was a perfect answer. But moving forward with that, right? So will you just kind of let's zoom in on a session and what you might do or what that might look like?
Again, it depends on the athlete, depends on the needs. First time, again, I see someone, we'll assess their visual skills. We'll talk about some ideas, some concepts. I show athletes how their eyes work for them and how their eyes work against them, and give them a lot of demonstrations of things that might happen in their sport and what happens when they're not looking at the right place. And then what we kind of go through some methods of train those eyes to be right, train their visual reaction skills. We try to assimilate as much as needed as we can to their sport. There's a lot of different tools that we'll use for that. Some tools I'll use with others, some I won't. We work on, one of the things that athletes like to do is work on speed of recognition. So we shoot a ping pong ball that shoots 170 balls a minute at them.
Okay.
And they have to catch two different colors. One, they'll catch an orange with their right hand and a white with their left hand.
Okay.
And what it is we have actually 3D, things are moving in space. They're making a decision and they're processing what they see. So we work on that skill set.
Okay.
Some of the results of that skill set is confidence. How do I use my eyes to perform? And that's what a lot of it is showing them how to have visual confidence and performance. And if it's a baseball, softball player, we teach them how to pick the ball up out of the release point. We teach them how to see the ball to contact. We teach them good methods of how to do that. If it's a football player, depending on their position, we'll work on eye skills that are reference to that. We also do a lot of movement with adding eyes into it. So it's a full eye, mind, body coordination training that we do.
No, that's really, really cool. Okay. No, I appreciate that. And then kind of just moving forward to a little bit about you and your development, right? So what are some resources that have had a big impact on you, whether it be books or podcasts or speakers or something like that?
I was reading that question. It's a very interesting question for me. I think I'm very different than most people.
Yeah.
And, I do read some books. I do listen to some podcasts, and there's some great ones out there, and some ones I tend not to listen to too much.
Yeah.
But, when I look at the resource, that's my biggest impact. I'm very lucky to have my biggest resource as my dad. And, this was his passion. This was his business. He's an optometrist. And, there's every single day that we talk about visual skills, visual challenges, how we can affect this and how we can do this better. So he's a huge resource to me. Not only as a father, but as a mentor, an advisor, a communicator, and he, I do a lot of the hands-on work, but he's the scientist. He understands a lot of the stuff that's going on, and we have a lot of neuroscientists and other doctors that we talk and discuss with to make sure that we're on the right plan and go in the right direction with that.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And
so it's pretty unique.
Yeah, no, exactly. And that's what I like to hear. Like, I can talk to a strength coach and maybe some of them have similar stuff. So it's really cool to hear someone outside of my direct realm, you know what I mean? And their development and what's caused them to think the way they do, you know what I mean? So that's what I really like to hear. So moving forward to this kind of...
Even back a little bit, adding that, just, books, podcasts, there's a lot of great stuff that's being written today. And, you always got to take it with a grain of salt where things are. And, and same with the podcast. Yeah. And there's some great stuff coming out of Europe that have a lot of beliefs in what we've believed in for so long. So really? It's great to hear other people believing the same things and getting into the same page that we feel like we've been on for a while.
Okay. Would you recommend any specifically or just kind of generally from that area?
What I've enjoyed a lot recently is the Talent Equation podcast. Okay.
No, that's good. I have to definitely look into that one. Anytime I can get more resources on some stuff, that's what it's all about, learning and sharing. So thank you for that. Yeah. Then this kind of last segment here, it's just some quick questions, you know what I'm saying? So the first one, do you have any kind of quotes or mantras that you live by?
I was giving some good thoughts on this one. Yeah. And my first quote that came to mind is something that came from a former general manager, Sid Thrift. Okay. And I always loved it, was there's a fine line between instruction and destruction. And learning how to stay on the right side of that line. Yeah. And, even though you have the best intent, sometimes you're not getting that athlete better because they're not understanding, or you're distracting them instead of instructing them. Yeah. And so I think I take that with most of my athletes, is I'm always trying to read and process, and may change my language or may change a technique based off how their learning principles on there. Yeah. And then I think the other quote that I and I don't know if this is necessarily a quote, but more of a principle is, and I think a lot of us are this way, is the fact that it's not about me. It's I have some knowledge and I want to help those people get to where they need to be. And that's something I always, think about. Athletes are great. They can run faster than me. They can lift more than me. Yeah. And I just have a piece of the pie that I can enhance them to hopefully make them, 1% better.
I love it. I love it. So what's the best advice you've ever been given?
Best advice.
Whether it be in sport or just in general life as well.
Yeah, I think all advice is good, and even I think the best. I'm not sure what the best advice would be. I think it just keep going at it. Yeah. Keep pushing. Yeah. And life is challenging. The world is challenging, and if you believe in something, keep doing it.
Yeah. No, I like that. Okay. So in contrast, what would you say the worst advice you've ever been given was?
I don't think there is anything that's worse.
Okay.
I don't think there's any bad advice. I think I think the worst advice is no advice. Okay. If someone doesn't give you advice, no feedback, that's the worst advice. I think there's I think you can learn from everything. Okay. And you may not believe in the advice. Yeah. You may not agree with that advice. Yeah. But that is still learning how other people think or what they see. Yeah. And so I think any kind of advice is always good. It's how you take it and how you what you do with it is what's important.
I love it. Oh, that's really good. Okay, so what do you think one of your biggest struggles to overcome has been?
My biggest struggle is time management. And when I say that is my brain is constantly spinning. And I always have some new ideas, new thoughts, and wanting to do so much. And I get a little bit unorganized because of the fact there's so much I want to get done, and there's so much advice I want to get out there to people. Okay. So that's one struggle. I think the other struggle too is when you have your own business and you're doing something that is not, when we talk about strength and conditioning, there's a strength and conditioning on every corner. Yeah. It's all across the country. When we talk about vision performance, there's not many people that are doing it. I agree. Not many people that understand it. So it's a big struggle to try to educate. It's a fun thing to do, but it's a big struggle to learn to get that out there and educate what we do. Yeah. Because it's No, I
agree 100%. All right, last kind of question on this segment, right? So what projects are you currently working on? How can people reach out to you, learn more, follow your journey?
Like I said, I'm all over the place. I got 50 projects I'm working on.
Yeah.
But one of the projects is to work on certification programs for strength and conditioning coaches, as well as other people. So that's one of our big projects we're trying to work on now within our time limits. The other project, so-called, is just working with teams. And right now I'm getting ready to head off on a 4-week journey working with a bunch of college teams and getting them and educating them to have a better visual performance skills when they go up to their season.
Awesome. Okay. So how can people kind of reach out to you, learn a little bit more, or get involved in Slow the Game Down?
Yeah, well, our website is obviously www.slowthegamedown.com. Same with our social media at Slow the Game Down. They can follow some of our Instagram. I try to post some videos of different things, different exercises. And the reality is, reach out to us. You can reach out to us via email at ryan@slowthegamedown.com or through social media anyway. And if it's something that you're interested in learning, just stay on us, and we're more than willing to figure out how we can help you grow as well.
Awesome. Well, Coach, thank you so much for your time. This has been very eye-opening, no pun intended. It's been cool just to learn, again, what you do, how you do it, and how, we can kind of move towards learning some of that realm because, again, we train the body, but a lot of us, almost nobody trains the eyes, to the degree that they should because, again, all sports, there's a lot of visual input coming in. So it's really cool to hear what you guys do. I love it. Keep moving forward, and hopefully I can connect with you again soon.
I appreciate the time.
Thanks again for joining me, and if you enjoyed the podcast, please go ahead and give it a 5-star review on iTunes. There's going to be more exciting content to come in the next few weeks with some more exciting guests, so until then, stay tuned and shoot me any ideas or guests that you would like to hear from. Thanks again for your time, and until next week, this is the Gamut of Performance Podcast.